Hello everyone, amateur meteorologist. First and weather here, it is August 29th, 2020, and we have a little bit to talk about. Definitely not as much as we had in the past few days with uh, Hurricane, forgetting the name, Lara, which really struck Louisiana really badly. And surprisingly, though, you might remember I was calling for a landfall right along or just to the west of the Texas border. In fact, we actually had landfall about 20 miles east of the Texas border, so definitely a big win for the GFS and its ensembles, as the European was consistently in the eastern portion of Texas. And so definitely we've seen over the past few months the GFS has actually really been doing a good job, and in many cases has actually exceeded accuracy when compared to the European. The European model really is having a bad year for especially 2020 and the later portions of 2020. So definitely interesting to see there. And the folks at NOAA and the Hurricane Center really did a phenomenal job forecasting the system. Did not really get swayed by the European guidance, and kept in mind that the European guidance was a bit off this year. And so really just a phenomenal forecast. In fact, they nailed the landfall by about 1 mile 3 days in advance. Just huge strides and improvement and progress in forecasting ability. But it does look like the United States will see a brief 1 week break, maybe even 1 to 1.5 weeks, before we really start to see some more systems getting near to the lower 48 and potentially having some impact. So right now we do have a couple of invests right here, one right there. This one right here has a 30% chance of development, and over the next 5 days, it's going to gradually go to the northwest in the Caribbean region. And this one has about a 40% chance of development in the next 5 days. And this will likely take an out to sea track the way it looks right now, but that certainly could change. Here is the European model storm track guidance for the next 10 days. As you can see, this thing right here, again, it should develop, but I think most likely it will turn out to sea. That could change, of course, like I said before, but the threat to the United States from this does not look very high based on the upper air pattern. Now, if we switch to the GFS ensemble, this is the GEFS para, or it's an experimental model, the experimental upgraded version of the GFS ensemble, and it really has been doing a phenomenal job recently. Really nailed the landfall location for Lara, so definitely interesting to see. Just want to take a look at what it's showing for the next few days. This is the 500 millibar geopotential height. As you can see, things remain a little bit cool actually, especially in the northwest, or not northwest, the upper Midwest, and also a little bit down south. A nice little trough coming through, cold front right here. Could see pretty good storms in the Plains region on September 1st. While things do remain a little bit warm on the East Coast, as you go through time, it keeps actually that cooler than average weather really just pocketed up in the Midwest, with some warmer than average conditions in the western United States and also along the southeast. And then after that, it really shows something interesting, a deep trough. And this has been supported by some of the other ensembles, showing that after about September 5th, we get an early shot of fall air, especially in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Temperatures running 5 to 10 degrees below average for that week or so, with some nice temperatures in the 70s in the mid-Atlantic, and even 60s and 50s in the upper Midwest. So you can see this is a pretty significant trough that the GFS is showing for this time of year. It really starts to show and starts to signal that fall has arrived, with the shortening days and the slightly crisper air we're seeing when we walk out the door. Fall is definitely on the doorsteps, and the GFS is saying we could see an earlier arrival to fall, with a nice little trough coming in, delivering some pretty good cooler conditions. And I think especially on the East Coast, we might see a nice, strong line of storms ahead of this trough, as we still will have some lingering warm and humid air entrenched along I-95. And with that strong, cold air coming in, we could definitely see some big thunderstorms pop up if this does indeed verify. So as we go through time after this, you can see the GFS then, things just flatten out a bit as we have go way past the forecast hour accuracy. With this is hour 300. So I definitely do think that there is potential September 5th through 10th to see a bit of a cool down, especially in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast and Midwest. And if we look at the European model, it doesn't go out quite as far, but we can see what it's showing. It shows basically the same thing up until September 5th. And after that, it also develops this nice little trough here coming in. So I do think it is potentially possible we're going to see a nice little cold front, potentially bringing with it some severe weather ahead of this very cold, unseasonably cool air. So I definitely do think that consensus is pretty high right now when it comes to this potential cool air mass coming in around the September 7th or 6th time frame. The European is a bit more late than the GFS, so it'll be interesting to see what actually does pan out. But I think after this week, the chances are pretty high. I think basically east and along of the Mississippi, and also in the Midwest, states like Wisconsin, Montana, even portions of South Dakota, North Dakota, we will see a nice cool down, temperatures running 5 to 10 degrees below average, and basically a nice little refresher after what's been a pretty good summer. In fact, many places saw some very warm months, very warm temperatures. So yeah, I think fall is definitely on the doorstep. So if we look at the temperature anomalies projected, let's switch to the GFS ensemble. We can see that the GFS ensemble does show a nice pocket of very cool air coming in for this time of year, and that eventually spreads eastward and then moderates, and then as time goes by, we do see some zonal flow developing because this is forecast hour 384, so everything really just kind of smooths out as the models become, each individual member becomes more uncertain. So again, to summarize, guys, I think September 6th is when we could see, or around that time, we could see a nice little cool shot of air coming in. Definitely will give you, once you step out the door, you will definitely notice that that cool shot if it does verify. I think it likely will. And now if we switch gears to the European model, this is the ensemble, and look at the upper air pattern for the entire Atlantic, because again, we are entering the climatological peak of hurricane season, and there are no signs that it's going to slow down. And so if we go through time, this is the 31st, a big expansive ridge really spanning across the entire Atlantic. That would really increase the chances of this system going west and not really making landfall or not really going out to sea. So that definitely is a change. Like I said earlier in the video, I thought that system right here would likely go out to sea. That's what it was looking like before because that big ridge was not in place before. However, now looking at this, I think chances are increasing. If this can develop, it definitely has a chance to really impact this area. That is, again, if it develops, big caveat there. And if we go further through time, that ridge only expands a big, broad, and very relatively slim ridge, but spanning the entire Atlantic. Not as strong here, so there's a bit of weakness here. I think during this time frame, we will have a bit of a more tendency to maybe get squashed out here or go out to sea. But after that, you can see that ridge really does build. Look at that September 5th, big ridge right here. Really quite impressive. And that is, of course, in response to that big trough we're seeing potentially in the eastern part of the country. So again, with every reaction, there has to be an equal and opposite outcome. So I do think the favorite conditions, of course, will be returning to very favorable after about September 5th, and will stay that way at least for a week with that big ridge right here. And the European is really hinting and suggesting that that ridge will be here to stay. Look at that, September 8th, big trough, so big ridge here, really promoting these systems to not really go out to sea like this, and definitely encourages these systems to continue their track westward and eventually northwestward. So I think over the next week or two, the threat for the southeast and potentially even the Carolinas is a bit elevated. So definitely after about September 4th, I think if you're on the East Coast and you see these systems developing here, pay close attention because I think the risk is a bit elevated, stretching down from Florida all the way to North Carolina for the next 2 weeks or so, especially starting September 4th to about the 10th. So again, stay tuned for that. Nothing to worry about, of course, right now. But the tropics are turning very active as they normally do this time of year. And with that upper air pattern like this, the way it is, I think definitely could see some trouble here if something does in fact materialize. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.